Welcome to the Trusted Podcast with your host, Blake Johnson. In each episode, Blake interviews professionals in different areas of life that you need a trusted source of information, including trust and estate planning. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, trustedepa.com. Now, here's the host of Trusted Podcast, Blake Johnson.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Trusted Podcast. Excited to be with you today. We're going to talk about some different type of things, different types of investments, not the traditional stuff. And so I brought in my good friend Gio here. And so, Gio, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Blake. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah. Well, why don't you start off, give us a little introduction, how you got here and what area of expertise we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. So you're asking about my journey, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's been quite a ride. I actually started out in the world of stocks and futures, developed algorithms to predict price fluctuations, like pretty nerdy stuff, right? But as it turns out, those skills translated perfectly into real estate. And I started applying that same analytical approach to property investments. And I started realizing that no matter what the class, residential, commercial, industrial, you name it, it was working pretty well. So here's a fun fact. Before I dove headfirst into real estate, though, I was actually a restaurateur. Yeah, our family owned a business. One of the most popular spots in town, sold it back in 2015. But running that business, Blake, taught me so much about customer service, managing, finances, and just how crucial location is. So, like, all that knowledge, it's gold in the real estate world, right?
Yeah.
So after selling the restaurant, I got my hands dirty with some fix and flip projects. And then from there, I just kept expanding. And now I work across all property classes. And I think it's this mix of experiences, Blake, my ability to have an analytical side. I understand the business ownership part of it. I've worked hands-on in it. And I think that really is what sets me apart because I'm always learning. I'm always staying on top of market trends. And it's how I keep delivering for my clients.
Awesome. Yeah. I knew the restaurant side of that story. I didn't know the stock and futures trading. That's interesting.
Oh, no?
Learn stuff every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we dive into the nitty gritty, I always like to try and get something interesting that the listeners might want to know about you. So what's something you do outside of work, something unique that most people wouldn't know about you?
All right. Well, that was an easy one for me. Outside of work. So most people don't know, but I had a brief stint as a professional golfer. It's actually how I got out to Vegas. So I was what they call a rabbit on tour, going and doing Monday qualifiers. Now, Blake, it didn't last long, but man, did it teach me about discipline and performing under pressure. And it's funny how those skills apply to real estate too. Plus, as you know, you'd be surprised how many deals get done on the golf course.
I'm not surprised, but yes, it's there's a lot of stuff.
I know you're not.
Gets done on there. That's why I was out there this morning.
Yeah, I mean, the average person doesn't really understand the power of being able to have, if it's 9 holes, 2, if it's 18 holes, maybe 4 hours with somebody. You know what I mean? In a pretty cool environment. So it's a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah, and people open up where you see their true character when you're on a golf.
100%.
Yeah, unfortunately, I showed a little bit of mine this morning. It was a little frustrating around.
Did you? Yeah, no, it's a great tool to use, and it's a really good way to kind of bring everybody or anybody that you're working with onto a pretty level playing ground. So it's cool to step outside of the boundary and really get to know somebody playing around the golf with them. I think it's essential for good deals, actually.
So just one follow-up question to that. So
yeah.
Just for listeners, what does it mean to be a Monday qualifier, and what is that? What are you trying to accomplish with that? For those who aren't involved.
So this is 1998-ish that this happened. I was very young, right out of college. And at that time, there were 2 ways to make the PGA Tour. The first one was to go to Q school, which is like 9 to 12 of the best rounds of golf you've ever played in your life, strung back to back to back to back. And especially because of the cost of it at the time, you normally have to have a sponsor. So the sponsor takes a cut of everything that you're doing and you're just starting out. So the second way to do it is, and it still kind of is, you can still do it this way. It's just different than when I was trying to do it. And that's being a rabbit on a Monday qualifier. And so there are private invitational tournaments, and then there's open tournaments. You've heard like the U.S. Open. Well, the U.S. Open, anybody can go out and try out for the U.S. Open and go through the qualifying stages, and that's what a rabbit is.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you play Monday, you qualify. They say, all right, you're in, and you play a tournament. And you can win it all.
Right. Your Thursday, Friday, and see if you can make the cut and get paid. And that's So I did that for a little stint until I hurt myself, and then kind of took the next step. What happened next in life.
Man. Well, Gio, why do you do commercial real estate and the non-traditional investment stuff? What drives you with that?
So to answer that, I thought about it, and through my vast experience across all the various business sectors, and from a lot of the most recent consulting work that I've done with countless clients over the course of my career, I've come to recognize that real estate and its related industries are simply solid ways to generate wealth. Like, they're relatively stable. And once you understand the intricacies of the transactions, like, the opportunities are incredibly diverse. So what really sets real estate apart is, in my opinion, its versatility. And Blake, you and I've had these conversations, in various times along the way. There's just so many ways to make money in this field. So whether you're looking for passive income, long-term appreciation, tax benefits, quick flips, real estate can accommodate almost any financial goal. And it's this diversity of opportunities that makes it such a powerful tool for wealth creation, regardless of whatever your specific objectives are or your risk tolerance.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's talk about myths. I always try to make sure we cover those, debunk those myths. So what are the biggest myths and misunderstandings in the different real estate stuff you do?
So it's a great question, and I love that you asked this of your guests, because it is interesting in this day and age with all of the information and the misinformation and what's trending, what's quote unquote trending that might not be, so it's a good one to explore. And so first off, here's the biggest one, of course, that you really don't need a ton of money to start investing in real estate. However, I'm gonna add my own caveat to that. Okay. It has to match the market that you're trying to penetrate. So there's so many strategies out there for folks with limited capital. However, being realistic about what you can achieve with limited capital is the hallmark of success in starting out small. Now, secondly, you have to understand that in most cases, unless you're buying really distressed properties and you're getting lucky enough to be able to get those deals, and you're getting market timing is great and you can get a turnaround of 60 or 90 days. Outside of those kind of scenarios, this really isn't a get rich quick scheme. And it takes patience and it takes diligence. And here's another one, and you'd be surprised at this one that I get often, especially when it comes to people that are trying to get into real estate investing on like the residential side. They're like, well, I really don't know how to fix things up. And I know, if I buy a fix and flip, I'm going to have to be the handyman. Well, that's a huge, huge myth. In fact, to really look at any level of successful real estate investment, it actually has to be more about building a reliable team than swinging the hammer yourself. And to do this and to do it right, you have to have a team and you need to be proactive.
Yeah, and I think that applies to anything. Obviously when you're first starting out, it's just you with whatever business you're in. You're going to be wearing a lot of hats. You're going to be doing a ton of the different jobs and things going on. But if you actually want to be successful, you can't be doing all the nitty gritty. You look at anyone who's uber successful. They have an executive assistant that helps them out with all that stuff. They don't, do it hardly any of their own email. And then, they don't necessarily do all the back office support work. They don't go to the post office. They don't do that stuff. And so you're right. You don't have to swing the hammer. You got to find a team. You need to be the one who's interacting and overseeing that, but you don't have to do every step along the way. And I love that you brought that up, because that's applicable to whoever, no matter what they're doing.
Well, Blake, I see it also as a mission of your podcast here is really trying to bring that resource to the table for your audience. And so it's an honest answer to an honest question, because that is a real concern that I see over and over, whether it be in my real estate investment consulting or whether it be in my business strategy consulting. I see that consistently. Really high level, successful people, they tend to want to do it all. And the taming that beast and learning, okay, where do I need to put my focus? And then hire the people that are really good at doing all these other things that, I'm not so good at doing, or that I shouldn't be focusing my time on. And that's when you start getting the right amount of information so that you can make great decisions.
Yeah. Well, and if you enjoy doing something, keep doing it. That's totally fine.
That's how it breeds success.
We all get into this place like, well, I don't like to do that, so I feel guilty passing off something I don't like to do. Well, guess what? That person that you're passing off to probably loves to do that thing. So you're actually not doing them a disservice. You're doing them a favor. Hey, you do this because that's what you're good at and you enjoy it, and then I'll do the things that you don't want to do. And so it's finding those complementary team members.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we get through a little bit more of this too, I have a feeling that we're going to revisit this topic in a couple different ways.
Okay. Well, let's talk about areas that are changing or changes happening in the real estate markets, and or how would you make changes to what you see going on?
Okay, another great question. There's a couple. So I'd start by raising the bar for the ability to become a real estate agent. So let's think about it, okay? For the most part, we're handling what is, for most people, the biggest single transaction financially in their lives. Okay, that's a statistic for the average Joe out there. Buying or selling a property, a real estate property, is going to be at or at the top of the most expensive transactions they've ever done. And for investors, Blake, we're talking about millions or tens of millions of dollars. And yet, almost anyone can get a license. So, I would love to see real estate held to higher standards, more like law or medicine. And I think that we need more serious professionals and fewer part-time side hustlers. So when I started thinking about this, it made me think of the next thing I'm gonna say. And in one of my blowout growth seminars that I do, I talk about market competition and market size. And there's a statistic out there, and it's an NAR statistic, a National Association of Realtors statistic. And I always like to ask my audiences, so I'm going to ask it here to you.
Okay.
I want to ask you, how many transactions do you think the average real estate agent does in a year, according to the NAR that has the statistics of every agent in our country?
Probably less than one.
Less than one. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Blake, you are among the very small population of people that are able to answer that question properly, because most people are astounded in the class. And the actual statistic is the average real estate agent does a half a transaction a year, or one transaction every other year.
Yeah.
So it just shows that there's too many people out there doing it part-time or like a side hustle. And what happens is it hurts the industry. It hurts everyone in the transaction, from the buyer, the seller, the agents, the brokers, and the litany of what is on average 30 to 40 other people and teams that work on a real estate transaction. And it's also why with AI, you don't really need an agent to do a real estate transaction if your property lies above the wholesale price ceiling and above the wholesale price ceiling and below the Fannie or Freddie jumbo loan limit.
Yeah. So here in Utah, you have a company called Homey, and I know they've come into Nevada too, and that's kind of their premise is, hey, we're here to help with those things. And it's interesting you brought up. So I was having a discussion with somebody else the other day about real estate, and we were talking about that lawsuit with NAR, and National Association of Realtors, and how now buyers have to pay their agent. It doesn't automatically come out of the seller side, which is what is traditionally has been for forever. And one of the thoughts that I had was, that actually should help clean up the industry, because you're going to get those people who just like, hey, I have my license, I'm going to help my friend buy a house because I don't have to do anything. I just show up, unlock a door, and that's it. And now those people are like, wait, I have to pay you 3% to do that? Yeah, no, I need more out of you for that. And
Well,
so
that's
I think
definitely
that'll help.
one. No, you're 100%. That's definitely one of the outcomes of what this is going to produce. And it's also a very accurate scenario that you just drew, because it does happen that way too. But it's not the only way that it happens. There's other ramifications of this that I think ultimately are good. I mean, if you really want to, talk about the topic in ad nauseum, you would talk about it in the fashion that we kind of did it to ourselves, by the fact that so many of the real estate agents just simply don't understand the mathematics of the real estate market. They just don't understand math, period. In fact, there was another statistic that was been researched over time, and it's 92.8% of all real estate agents and brokers don't understand the basic mathematics of the real estate system. So it's a problem, and it affects, and it's kind of why we've taken ourselves out of the game, if you will, almost through our inadequacies. And other things are coming, other changes are coming, especially in Nevada. You're going to need, up until this point you haven't, but you're going to need an attorney to do a transaction. And I think it should be that way. I think you should have an attorney on a transaction. You've got the average Joe that doesn't understand math and certainly doesn't understand law, trying to do a really complicated transaction with documents involved, especially in the commercial and industrial space. I mean, when you're dealing with commercial properties and non-residential properties, it becomes even more important to involve the right team and the right people. We keep talking about the right team, and this is exactly an example of it, right? So
yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, Florida, I know for sure, has always, at least as long as I've been practicing, has always had that requirement. You can't just go through a title company. You have to actually go through the attorney, and the attorney deals with the title company.
Most other states are like that, actually.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many other states are like that. Most of them are. Most of them.
So you said that is coming down the line in Nevada. Is that proposed, or is it passed and going to be in effect next year?
No, it passed. It started already.
Okay.
And it's I personally think that it's a good thing. I think that it's people don't like change. They don't like change, and so they don't want to do anything different. But what it actually does in a couple different ways, it does protect the consumer. And more importantly, and even though it won't feel like this in the beginning, and it certainly won't if you're in the market to buy a property right now, certainly won't feel like there's a lot of benefit here, but there actually is quite a bit of benefit, because you're going to be able to now shop for a real estate agent the same way that you would shop for any other professional trade. And what'll end up happening is, in one regard, it hurts, the agency business. I think you're wiped out in the agency business if you are only a buyer's agent and a real estate agent. I think you need to get another job. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying that out of love, I think you need to find, something else to do, because it's just not, now it becomes a zero-sum game. It's how low am I going to market myself as a buyer's agent? You can come to me and pay me a 1%, or is it, $700 now? You can't make a living doing buyer real estate transactions as an agent anymore, in my opinion. So it's got lots and lots of it probably, Blake, is a conversation worthy of an entire other podcast, just from, and it might be a question you should ask some of your other guests too, that have some inside knowledge on it too. Like, what do you feel this will impact, not only real estate, but the tangential accompanying businesses, in industries associated with real estate? I think it's going to affect them all in a good way overall, more power to us.
It is interesting, the people I've been talking to since that lawsuit came out is the realtors who actually are good. And yes, I think the thing we should cover is, the average person does a half, but most good ones do 40 to 50 transactions a year. And so that makes your, that number even further down the list. They're doing one transaction for the lower end once every 5 years or something like that. So the ones who are actually good and know what they're doing, they're excited about it, because like, hey, it's going to get, the low garbage out of there, the people who don't know what they're doing. I kind of feel the same way about online estate planning stuff. I'm fine with that stuff, because all it does is it takes away the competition of those who don't know what they're doing,
right?
Who, they might just only be helping people who just need a simplistic stuff, and that can be done online. There's plenty of systems out there, from LegalZoom to Trust and Will to Estate Guru to Rocket Lawyer. Now, some of those programs are better than others. I'm kind of biased on one because I'm on the board of one, so I won't say what that is, but it does, in my opinion, help raise the level, because like, hey, those ones who are just doing bare minimum, don't have a real idea of how to do a complex planning, that's only going to help my business. And because there always will be a need for that more complex planning.
Yeah, and I think it needs to get peppered throughout the conversation, because again, going back to building the right team. I mean, you make a great point about it filtering out, a certain type of clientele, especially from a professional side. But even more so, like, it gives you it needs to be a part of your planning. It's so important. And I know you're going to ask me another question maybe in the future that we can touch upon this a little bit more on, but that's one of the more important takeaways from today for anybody that's listening here today. It's really, really important to build the right team. And it gives you such a higher chance of success with whatever it is you're doing, in this particular case, real estate investment.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to the next topic. What should people do prior to coming to see, someone like you, a real estate agent, whether that's residential, commercial, whatever it is? What are the things that you want them to have done prior to seeing you that'll help make that a more successful interaction and help them be ready for the transaction?
Your audience is getting a treat by you asking that question, because it's a fantastic question, especially in this particular topic. So the first thing I would tell everybody to do is do some soul searching. Know your financial goals, know what your risk tolerance is, know what your expected timeline is going to be. Those are personal things that you need to start with on your own. Familiarize yourself with some of the basic terms, the words that are out there that are, going to get thrown around by people that are in the industry. Also, their ability to understand or use those terms might also key you in a little bit when you're interviewing as to how in tune they are with what you're seeing them for. Gather your financial docs, and here's a really, really key piece of this entire thing. Start building your team. You should be interviewing lenders. There are so many products out in the market that are available. And honestly, it takes some time to find the right lender, because there's so many unique products out there. So really, Blake, what you should do is contact the agent that you want to work with. This is like right when you start thinking about it, okay? Contact the agent and then ask them for a list of referrals of lenders that they work well with. Now, usually you'll get a list of at least 3. You should ask for 8 or 9. Because if the agent knows what they're doing, they'll have relationships with 15 to 20 lenders that are all available to you in all different aspects of what kind of money lending and opportunities and options are out there, allowing you to educate yourself on what products are available to you and to getting yourself pre-qualified and approved. It's an essential key element to making a good deal. And I believe, and I know that you agree with this, that preparedness and planning is key to making a good decision, whether it be on a personal residence, on a vacation home, a rental property, a commercial property, an industrial property, even just expanding your business. Your business is growing and you're expanding to a new location. You want to take on new things. You want to get the interviews going. You want to tell everybody your timeline, okay? For example, I'm not ready to buy for another 90 days, but I want to get all my ducks in a row, and I want to be prepared to enter the market by December 1st, for example. And then that gives your agent the ammunition that they need to be aggressive in your offerings, whether you're buying or selling. On the sell side, it's super important to get a good read on the markets. And that's particularly where I excel, because I have my algorithms that are guiding the research. So I tend to have the ability to forecast the final sale price with a really good, very good degree of success. And it gives the client an advantage. But regardless, get the conversation started. If your agent tells you that you should be listing as soon as possible, but the house really isn't ready, for example, that could be a sign of neediness. And that agent might fall into that category that we talked about earlier, who only do a half a deal a year. So give yourself time to shop around, give yourself time to interview. Like, for example, our services are real estate consultation services. So me and my team, we specialize in strategy. Now, I do this both with my real estate and with my business consulting clients. Your agent should be analyzing the market with you, encouraging setting up searches in your neighborhood so you could start watching in real time what's happening with prices. If you're going after commercial property, you should be looking at every single thing. Your agent should be showing you even if you told me, hey, I only want to be on the south side of town. Okay, great. If on the south side of town is not where you're at, Why don't we at least learn about what it is that you do want and what it's going to take to get it there? Because now you're having a meaningful conversation. You're actually considering meaningful information that's going to get you closer. So all of those things play in, Blake, in starting that process early. And it's going to help you to find the right people on your team, because the people that are going to be like, fantastic, we got 90 days to set up the right plan here, to execute, instead of like, oh, well, we got to get this listed as soon as possible. Well, there are some sort of situations. If you happen to call me, Blake, at a certain time of the year and velocity is increasing, but you know me, and I'm telling you, hey, now's the time to sell, that's an exception to the case. But for the most part, true success in this industry comes from proper planning and execution. And the only way to do that is with a good team.
Yeah, no, it is interesting how most people think, oh, I just list it and sell and that's it. And instead of having that conversation, or, so if they ask that question, hey, or they make that statement, hey, I'm not going to be ready for 90 days in person. Okay, well, you should do it right away. Okay, give me the reason why. It's just, oh, I think the market's hot right now, or whatever. They can't back it up with the data or any other substantial stuff. So that's a red flag. Where you say, hey, yeah, if it's a certain time of year like this, you'll be able to back up. I've got X, Y, Z. This is why normally I would say we could take our time, but this is an exception. Why? But you don't have to.
Well, and there may be other pressures involved too, and that's why you have to. This is exactly why you have to have the right team. Like, for example, involving an estate planning attorney early in the game here, it's crucial, because there may be things that do accelerate your time frame, and you need to be aware of those, those hallmarks and stuff, so you can make your agent aware. Because most of the time they'll come to us and be like, oh, I got a 1031 exchange, I got 15 days left. 15 days, like. Why didn't you tell us all sooner?
Yeah, that's always the way it goes. Yeah, anytime you can plan ahead, always going to work out better. All right, getting short on time, so
okay.
Just a couple questions left for you. Best advice you've ever been given. Doesn't have to be related to business or real estate or anything like that. Best advice you've ever been given.
Well, that was a tough one. It really is. So I am going to answer it regarding real estate investments. Okay.
Okay.
So this is it verbatim. I'll read it. While a good location is important, what's even more crucial is getting a good deal. The idea is that you shouldn't overpay even for a prime location. And sometimes a less obvious location can be a great investment if the price is right.
Nice. Where does that come from?
That's real estate guruism.
Okay. I like it. And then last thing is best advice you would give about real estate to the average consumer.
So my advice for the average consumer is start by really understanding what you want. There's just so many people that come to me saying that they want to buy a multifamily property or whatever the latest trend is. But then when we dig deeper, we often find that what they really want is a specific monthly income, or they want a certain return on their cash. So once we know the true goal, we can explore all sorts of different options that they might not have considered. So for example, maybe instead of buying a rental house with a conventional loan, an SBA loan on a commercial property might work better. Or perhaps land banking for appreciation aligns more with your long-term or estate planning goals, for example. The key is always to ask, is there a better way to achieve what I really want? And remember, real estate is not a one-size-fits-all. You could be open to different strategies. You keep learning. The market is always changing, Blake, so what worked yesterday might not be the best approach today. So stay flexible, stay informed, and don't be afraid to seek advice. That's how you make the most of your real estate investments.
One of the great reasons I like working with people like Gio is they're creative. They're not going to just settle for the traditional option, whether that's on the purchasing side, selling side, but they're going to be creative with getting you in front of the right lenders, or creative with the right solution to come up with that. And maybe it's, hey, you don't need two commercials or one commercial spot, but you can get two rentals and it accomplishes the same goal. That kind of stuff. So that would be my advice about this is, talk to different people, find people who are solution driven. Like you just said, they're asking the right questions as opposed to, okay, you want to sell your house? Okay, how much do you need to make? Here you go. And that's it. It should be a conversation and there should be a lot of strategy involved. So,
well, Blake, before you let me go, there's one other thing that I think would benefit your audience. And it's to talk just briefly about how working with an estate attorney like you and your firm is a top priority to make sure that my clients' investments are protected and structured to align with their legacy goals. And that might involve setting up trusts or series LLCs or other entities. And I cannot express to you how important it is to consult with a qualified, trusted estate attorney and build your team and put your team together so that you can have an advantage and get the information from the professionals that helps you to make the right decision. It cannot be understated enough. Overstated enough, sorry.
Appreciate the plug there. We do work with the realtors on that to say, hey, how is this property being purchased? What's going to be the best way to hold this based off of those long-term goals? As we've said multiple times, it's all about that team.
And you know what? That's not necessarily what you're getting from those other off-the-shelf products. I mean, not to the degree. And I think you do still have to talk to guys like you, Blake, that are in the know and know how to do what they're doing best at.
Yeah. It's a whole team thing. It's not just us two. There's the CPA involved. There's the financial advisor as well. There's all different pieces, and we all got to be on the same page. So appreciate that point. Really appreciate you being on the show, Gio.
Thanks for having me.
Tons of knowledge out there. So hopefully the listeners, took some notes, got some great ideas from that. But that's all the time we have for today. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. We will catch you next time on the Trusted Podcast.
You've been listening in to the Trusted Podcast with your host, Blake Johnson. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, trustedepa.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Please subscribe to make sure you are notified each time a new episode is released each week.